Georgia on your mind.
Georgia on your mind.
Georgia on your mind. Brought to you by the New Media Institute at the University of Georgia. It's season 4. Dogs on the Road.
Welcome back to Georgia on Your Mind. I'm Maya Jarrell, and we're coming to you today from the main office of the Georgia Student Finance Commission in Tucker, Georgia, where I'm joined by President of GSFC, Chris Green. GSFC is the state's higher education finance agency, overseeing more than 20 higher education financial aid programs, including the Hope and Zell Miller scholarships. But Chris is more than just a state leader who oversees these programs. He's a Clark County kid, a Hope Scholar, and a UGA alum who once sat where so many students are today, trying to figure out college, career paths, and future goals. Chris is joining us today to talk about opportunity, talent in our state, and the full circle story behind these programs that have helped millions of Georgia students chart their own paths. Chris, thanks for welcoming us into your office today.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be on the podcast.
Yeah. Alrighty. So just to start off, for those who are meeting you for the first time today, how do you describe what you do as president of the Georgia Student Finance Commission?
Sure. So like you said, many Georgians may not necessarily be familiar with the Georgia Student Finance Commission, but when I say that we administer the Hope Scholarship, the reaction is always the same. They say, oh, I had hope, or one of my children had hope, thanks for what you do. So that always feels really good. As you mentioned, a state agency, just a little over 100 employees, but very honored thanks to the generosity of the governor and the General Assembly. We administer over $1 billion every year to Georgia college students.
Awesome. So going back kind of before the titles and the leadership roles, tell us about kind of who you were as a kid growing up in Clark County. Was there a moment in your childhood where you were like, okay, I'm going to dedicate my career to education?
Sure. Growing up in Athens was an amazing experience. I love to tell people, as an Athenian, receiving all of your education on Baxter Street from Alps Road and Clark Middle, Clark Central, and then ultimately the University of Georgia. I was just so fortunate. I had a great experience. My father was a community banker. My mother was a school teacher for 38 years, and so I think that's a lot of where my interest in public service comes from. A lot of my memories were helping her prepare her classroom every year. Just seeing the excitement that she had, teaching students to read. And I know that that passion for students transcends educators all across our state. And it's the same thing that drives not only educators, but so many people in public service, the idea that we're doing something great for our community. And so I wasn't exactly sure what my career would be, but to grow up in the shadow of the University of Georgia was just an awesome experience.
Yeah. So kind of referencing back to that Hope Scholarship, you were able to benefit from the GSFC programs like so many other millions of Georgia students, like including some of our members of Team Goim. So what can you tell us, or what do you remember about that moment when you kind of realized that you were going to be able to benefit from that scholarship? Did that open any doors or opportunities for you?
Absolutely. I remember through high school, my parents encouraging me to keep track of that Hope GPA, make sure that we're on track to be Hope eligible. I'm thankful they encouraged me to look at a variety of institutions around the state, but with the flagship Land and Sea Grant institution at your back door, it's like, how could you go anywhere else? Yeah. And so I was so thankful that, I got to do campus tours. I got to learn about other institutions, but with the Hope Scholarship, the University of Georgia, there was just no decision.
Yeah.
It was easy.
Can you tell us a little bit more about how the Hope GPA works and how that differs from like a weighted or unweighted GPA from your high school?
Great question. So a critical part of what we do is traveling the state, making sure that students and parents know, beginning in 9th grade, about college planning and some of the resources that our agency provides. As you mentioned, while everyone knows us for the Hope Scholarship, we actually administer over 25 different financial aid programs. And so with the Hope GPA, it's very important that students, beginning in high school, they can monitor that Hope GPA. Our website is gafutures.org. So students throughout their high school experience and later as a college student can continue to monitor the Hope GPA and make sure that they're on track for retaining that merit-based financial aid. And so our high school partners are incredible about advising students and making sure that they're on track. And so, I would just encourage students to always be mindful that there's their institutional school GPA, but then there's also a Hope GPA, which is mandated by law and it's the same for every student across the state.
Gotcha. Very cool. So you get to UGA, you major in history, and then get your MPA and a public manager certificate from the Carl Vinson Institute. So I know those kind of happened in stages, but at that point in your life, particularly in undergrad, did you have kind of a clear vision or path for your career, or were you still kind of figuring that out?
I was definitely still figuring that out. In full disclosure, I started in the College of Education and ultimately changed over to Franklin. I was always drawn to the humanities. I loved history. I loved people. And so a history degree was absolutely right for me. I loved it. Every history major will tell you there's a lot of writing, communication skills. This was far before ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And just had some incredible professors who influenced my love and passion for history. After I worked for several years, went back to pursue that master's in public administration. Terrific program. Spent some of my coursework at the Gwinnett campus, some of it in Athens. Would highly recommend the MPA program to any student thinking about a career in public service. And then the manager certificate, Carl Vinson Institute of Government, considered the gold standard across the country when it comes to supporting our state and local government partners. And so that was a terrific experience, and very thankful that we have a resource like Carl Vinson here in Georgia.
Yeah, that's awesome. So while you were there, how did your mentors or the courses you take or the people that you kind of were meeting, how did they kind of help you discover that path and shape what would it become this very successful career?
Absolutely cannot speak highly enough about the importance of mentorship, and I'm so thankful that I had people that spoke into my life as a college student. One who definitely changed the trajectory of my life was Gary Black, who served as our agriculture commissioner. Prior to Commissioner Black's election, predecessor had been in office since we had a man on the moon. And of course, as agriculture, our state's #1 industry. And so to have a Department of Agriculture that protects consumers, supports farmers, responsible government, was very honored to have the opportunity to learn from Commissioner Black, and then ultimately had an opportunity to go to work for him after graduating from UGA. Two professors I remember that had a tremendous impact on my life. Dr. Cobb, who is the Finney Spalding Professor Emeritus in History, and Dr. Steve Berry, if anyone gets a chance to take a class. He is a Civil War historian, but holds the Greg and Amanda Gregory Chair for Civil War Studies. And I have to say, thank you to people who continue to support privately our institutions. Greg and Amanda Gregory have supported UGA's history program for many years. One of the experiences I remember as an undergraduate student, they actually serve on the Board of Visitors for the Mount Vernon estate. And so Greg and Amanda Gregory paid for our class to fly to Mount Vernon to experience that firsthand, then fly back. And just to have that experience as a student was amazing.
Yeah. I want to hear more about that. I've never been to Mount Vernon. What was that experience like? I guess, how did that kind of did that have an impact on you long term, you think?
Absolutely. I think all of our institutions now do such a great job of providing real hands-on learning experience, work-based learning, internships. And so for people that are studying history, to go to a place like Mount Vernon to see how the public can come learn about history through living exhibits, just such a powerful experience. And Mount Vernon is an incredible place. But then when students are already navigating the college experience, finances, to have such a generous donor offered to make that trip financially possible is just an amazing experience for students.
Yeah, totally. Did you have any favorite courses or other specific experiences you want to shout out?
Sure. So let's see. We talked about Dr. Cobb, Dr. Berry. I was very fortunate to be involved in Student Government Association. I loved SGA, was a member of Art Society, Greek Life. Anything, I encourage students to get involved on campus. Other mentors, President Moorhead, as a student, when you email the president thinking maybe I can get a meeting to talk about some, student life improvement, for him to respond and invite me to come have a conversation, that's incredible.
Yeah. And
so really appreciate President Moorhead and on the campus of 40,000, everything that UGA does to make sure it feels like home and a community for students, and there's something for everyone on campus for sure.
Yeah. Having, leadership that you can interact with, I feel like makes a huge difference for students in particular, because it's like, okay, I'm actually being heard. They care about me here. So that's great.
Absolutely.
So like we mentioned, you were a Hope Scholar, and now obviously you lead the agency that administers that program and many others. So how do you feel like your experience of, directly benefiting from these programs shapes the approach that you take to being the president?
I'm so blessed to have an opportunity to lead this agency. We're going to do as much good as we can for whatever time we're allowed to serve. And, being a student who came through the university system and getting to know our partners who lead the university system now, we have a terrific technical college system, 22 institutions, and then we also have 34 independent institutions who also participate in our financial aid program. So to learn about the student experience, how we support students throughout the process, whether it's navigating federal financial aid or our state financial aid, how can we help students access the institution that they're trying to pursue and give them the tools and resources to be successful. One thing that I'm very passionate about is financial literacy. And so I think since I came through school, a lot of our high school partners have actually incorporated financial literacy into their curriculum. And so that's something that we'll also be doing from a statewide perspective, making sure that students know, there's scholarship and grant aid available that doesn't have to be paid back. And if you do need to borrow, making sure that we're borrowing responsibly.
Yeah.
And so just making sure that students are prepared for success after earning that credential.
Yeah. So along those lines, are there any myths about financial aid that you kind of wish more students understood better?
Definitely. I think while all of us are having really important conversations right now around student borrowing and student debt, I want to make sure that we don't accidentally, scare kids into thinking that college isn't possible for me. Mm-hmm. And so when we talk to students, you think about, okay, here's what a Hope Scholarship is going to cover in tuition. Here's how much aid you might qualify from federal student aid. Our institutional partners provide additional financial aid. And so when you look at the whole picture, we want to make sure that every Georgia student sees themselves pursuing some type of education beyond high school, whether that's USG, TCSG, or in an independent college. Mm-hmm. And what does that look like, and what can we do to help the student get there? So that's one myth. I want to make sure that students know that we have resources and we're here to help.
Yeah. So you have referenced Georgia's strategy to become the top state for talent. I know that that's kind of something that we're talking about a lot these days. So what does that kind of mean practically for our students in Georgia, and why does investment in higher education kind of work to achieve that goal?
So the governor has spearheaded this initiative called the Top State for Talent. And after being recognized as the number one state for business for over 12 years now, we also have to be the top state for talent. Mm-hmm. And I was very fortunate, part of my career working for the University System of Georgia in economic development. When I would meet with business leaders who were considering expanding their business or relocating a business to Georgia, their number one concern is always about that talent pipeline. And so I'm so thankful for the governor and the General Assembly for recognizing the importance of post-secondary education. And with initiatives that the governor has launched, Top State for Talent, Georgia Match, High Demand Career List, helping students navigate and make sure that they're in a path that's going to lead to a fulfilling, successful career, and so that they can continue to stay here in Georgia. We have to keep our best and brightest here. Yeah,
totally. We can't have all these wonderful businesses without people talented people to work at them. So it's very important. So these programs can be really life-changing for students who are experiencing financial struggles or don't think that college is achievable for them. Why is it so important for you to reach out to those students specifically with these programs?
I think one of the most amazing things about Georgia Match, and the reason this is so innovative, the largest direct admissions program in the country, we want every student to see that college is possible for them. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of students get their Georgia Match letter and they tell me, I never realized that I could be admitted here. I never realized that this was an option for me. And so I think under the governor's leadership, we're taking this a step farther in the letters that students receive their senior year, we're including information about financial aid. And so you can come to GA Futures, view the institutions where you are already meeting the admissions requirements. You can also look and see how far is this from your home, geographic. And so just anything we can do as a state to support students and make sure that they feel supported and confident in pursuing that next step after high school graduation.
Yeah. I want to talk more about Georgia Match because this is such a unique and really, honestly, just cool, inspirational program. Tell me a little bit more about how it works for those who don't know.
We mentioned the HOPE GPA earlier. So this is the standard GPA calculation that every high school is familiar with across the state. We serve over 700 public and private high schools. With Georgia Match, the governor wanted to take any fear and anxiety out of the college admissions process. And so in October of the senior year, we send a personalized letter from the governor to every high school senior, about 137,000 students. And on this letter, we list out every institution where, based on that HOPE GPA, the student already meets the qualifications for admission. And so what we ask students to do is come to the website, gafutures.org, and either request more information or claim your spot. It's really that simple. And we hope it's been a game changer for students, and we're very proud of it.
Yeah, it's awesome. You mentioned, like, the coolest part about this program is that you're reaching students who are like, oh, I never knew I could get into here, or I never knew that, college was an option at all for me. So tell me more about why that is especially meaningful and why we need it, and like, why is it so important to encourage those students to go and pursue post-secondary education in the first place?
We know that with the jobs of the future, our citizens are going to need some type of post-secondary training beyond high school to be prepared for the workforce of the future. So again, those myths that I wish students knew, it's amazing the range of opportunities that we have in this state, that we don't want any student to feel like they have to go out of state, especially with Hope Scholarship here. So if they want to pursue a 4-year bachelor's degree, all of the University System of Georgia institutions, those 34 independent colleges I mentioned, but also students that are interested in pursuing a workforce certificate or diploma, amazing technical college system, 22 institutions. I believe they say that they have a campus within 30 minutes of every Georgian. And so the opportunities are out there, and we just want to make sure that students know. And thank you again to our high school partners who are such critical partners in getting this message out, making sure that students know, okay, we're approaching high school graduation. Let's talk about what's going on after commencement. Are we going on to post-secondary? Are we going to join the military, enter the workforce? We want to help students do that.
Yeah. You mentioned the technical institutions and these professional certificates. And for me, that's what really sets some of these programs apart, is because, higher education at a standard 4-year university, truthfully, isn't for everyone. But that doesn't mean that post-secondary education isn't going to be beneficial for whatever career path you take. Was that always a part of kind of this work, or is that something that you guys have kind of expanded into?
Our technical college partners have been a part of this work from the beginning. Yeah. Thinking of workforce development, and TCSG is really incredible in how they support industry partners who are relocating to Georgia, looking for a highly skilled workforce very quickly. With absolutely these conversations that are happening in high school counselors' offices around the dinner table about, what are my strengths? What would I like to do? How can I support my family and my career? And so one of the other emphasis that we like to focus on is career planning. And so it's not only, what type of post-secondary education is best for me, but also to get to the career that I want. What is the educational journey that gets me there, and what can the state do to help me? Yeah.
Well, on that note, what do you kind of wish students knew more about the resources that are available to them? I mean, it's so easy for students to get overwhelmed when you start thinking about tuition and picking a major and all this stuff. What do you wish more people knew about?
Well, I feel like we have to talk about the FAFSA. We want every student to complete the FAFSA. We know there's money waiting on students, and that gets left on the table because students don't complete the FAFSA. We talked about our program, so not only Hope and Zell Miller scholarships, but almost 25 different financial aid programs we administer. Many of these are targeted towards workforce needs for our state. We were speaking about the technical college system earlier. For students pursuing a certificate or diploma, we have Hope Grant, Zell Miller Grant, incredible for students. But because we recognize the workforce needs, we also administer another program called the Hope Career Grant. And so if a student is pursuing credential of value in one of these high demand areas, we will give the student an additional financial award on top of that Hope or Zell Miller grant to put towards their education. And so the state's done some really innovative things to help support our private sector partners and the workforce, and just making sure that students know that those options are out there.
Yeah.
And so I would ask them to visit gafutures.org. And actually, thanks to some of the governor's legislation this past session, beginning in ninth grade, actually asking every ninth grade student to come to GA Futures, create an account that's free and secure. And that's how we get information out about planning for college and the resources that are available.
Awesome. So it's really about kind of helping students find that correct career path for them and the educational journey, like you said, that's going to help them get there. But so many students feel, pressure to pick the perfect path, especially when throughout high school you're like, okay, well, I have to get into a good college so I can get a good job and all this stuff. But you are very successful. You've had multiple chapters in your career, like you referenced, working for the Georgia system. So how do you kind of think about diversions or, branching off paths in your life when you're a young professional?
Absolutely. I as you said, I think my career has been a testament to that. It's not a one and done. Your career will continue to evolve. With post-secondary education, employers want students who are prepared for lifelong learning. So that learning doesn't stop after they get the diploma. And so once you enter the workforce, our generation, I think certainly is redefined. We don't necessarily stay in the same job for 30 years. A lot of us will take many jobs. And building on our skill set, being able to, one thing that's never going to go away is soft skills and the ability to communicate with customers, especially in public service. One of the things I'm so thankful for my mentor, Commissioner Black, was helping constituents when they have a problem, helping them find a solution. And so making sure that students understand the ability to think critically, problem solve. These are things that transcend every career path, every educational certificate. And so those are things that I really hope to impress upon students.
Yeah. You really also can't undervalue the skills that you gain from one job that will then be able to be applied to the next. I imagine that's the case with you. Can you share a little bit about how your previous roles have kind of, helped you in this role?
Absolutely. I was so fortunate to start my career at the Department of Agriculture, an amazing agency with a very consumer-focused mindset on protecting consumers, supporting farmers, and anyone in public service, whether you're an educator, a state employee, local, federal government employee, the idea that you're helping your community. And so when a member of your community calls for help with something, it may or may not be your department, but I think we have an obligation to help them find the right point of contact in government. And so when I had an opportunity to come to this agency almost 10 years ago now, customer service is still customer service. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just so thankful that my mentors impressed upon me the need for what does public service look like. And thankfully, I'm so fortunate to work with the incredible team here, a little over 100 employees. And without question, every year when we survey employees, and there's some great things about being a state employee, without a doubt, every time I feel that I made a difference in someone's life, and that's why I keep showing up to work. Yeah. And so how can you ask for something more? So.
Yeah, that's great. So I feel like some people outside of the region still unfortunately stereotype Georgia and the rest of the Southeast as maybe not super invested in higher education, where we see that that's not the case clearly with these programs. do you feel a responsibility to kind of push back on that narrative and kind of set the record straight?
I'm thankful. I don't think I have any of those kind of people in my life.
Yeah.
And I hope that, you will hold up the University of Georgia as an example to anyone who would say something like that. The birthplace of public higher education in this country, before the U.S. Constitution was even ratified, our leaders here were thinking about how do we prepare our citizens for the future, and how fortunate we are to live in a state now where our governor and general assembly believe deeply in the power of post-secondary education, commit tremendous resources to help students achieve that. And so just very blessed and thankful. And
Yeah, that's great. This is kind of thinking into the future, but what maybe 10, 15 years down the line, what is your vision for the Georgia Student Finance Commission, but also kind of the state of post-secondary education in our state in general?
Sure. I'm really excited about we are getting even better at serving students. So some of the things our institutions are doing now, we talked about a career pathway and maybe a student being hesitant to start a 4-year journey. We need to do a better job of creating on and off ramps for students. So maybe they start at their local technical college, get a certificate in nursing, and then they want to ultimately go on and get that bachelor's degree. How do we make that pathway seamless for a student? Mm-hmm. In terms of financial aid, I mentioned financial literacy, some of the steps we're taking to make sure that students recognize other financial aid that's available before borrowing. Also, many of our employers have new, what I'll call short-term education opportunities, thinking about like maybe a coding boot camp. And so I think about short 6-week programs. Are there financial aid programs that we can design to support students as education continues to change, as the workforce continues to change? Technology is changing so fast. And so we just want to make sure that we're staying ahead of the curve and supporting our students 10 years from now.
Yeah. How do you think we stay ahead of the curve? We're all invested in keeping Georgia kind of on the map in that regard. And how do we make sure that we're kind of competing with some of these, states that have like Ivy League schools and stuff like that?
I'd be quick to point out that Georgia has 3 premier flagship institutions of anywhere in the country, with University of Georgia, Georgia Tech, and Emory University. All of our institutions are incredible. All of them provide a pathway for a student to be here, have a great career, and make sure that this is the place that they want to learn and earn and raise a family here. One of the things that really excites me about the governor's Top State for Talent initiative, people like to stereotype state government as being siloed. Not with the governor's leadership, pulling multiple agencies into a monthly roundtable meeting. So you think about people that help students on this journey: State Department of Education, our agency from financial aid, University System of Georgia, Technical College System of Georgia, Department of Labor, Department of Economic Development, Office of Student Achievement. All of these state partners working together to say, here are some trends we're seeing, here are some things that are happening with economic development, recruiting, new industries that don't even exist yet. How can we be thinking ahead for these students and saying, okay, nanotechnology or circuit design, let's make sure that we have academic programs and financial aid ready to support students to be prepared for these new jobs that are coming.
Yeah, and they're coming.
Absolutely.
Well, that really just shows that education is such a key component of, all these different factors that make our state so great. And yeah, I just have really enjoyed hearing more about what you guys do at the Georgia Student Finance Commission. So I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here. Thanks for helping us get the word out to high school students.
Yeah, no problem.
Thanks for tuning in to Georgia on Your Mind, Dogs on the Road. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Georgia on Your Mind Pod for the latest updates, and we'll see you at the next stop.